That's what I've been, every time I do one of these, I learn some new things. And I also think we're learning about what people's concerns are. And the one that got me, Michael, when we had Colonel Al Mink talking about this thing that I had generically called DevSecOps, he
Mhm.
talked about all of these factories that are part of where they're going with software. They're software factories at the different pieces of the Air Force and the other. I'm like, wait a minute. I've been telling people this, and now you're saying no. All the software companies should be going after SBIRs and OTAs. I'm like, you don't go after those. There's not a
Yeah.
going after of those. And, it's changing the game. And I feel like every time we down, government contracting is very much old school. This is how it's done and everything else. But if you're not on the right meeting at the right time, you miss the memo.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it should be pretty interesting to see what comes out of all of this.
Yeah. I've been doing government contracting stuff for right around 25 years, and I learned something new all the time.
Oh, yeah, me
I mean,
too.
I'm embedded. Josh is the same way. We'll hear something like, I've never heard of that. And we've been around for all this time. And so there's all kind of new things popping up. And yeah, it's a very interesting time to be a government contractor. That's for sure.
Yeah, it definitely is. And Doc Wright is asking a question. He says, how do I join an OTA, Jenny? And to clarify that, an OTA is an other transaction authority, which is basically a government contract that is awarded to what's called an OTA consortium. And at first there were 20, then there were 50. I think there may be 100, and we might be able to get a master list from the group on Friday. But what Colonel Mink mentioned is there's one called C5. And that is the consortium that probably has the most depth inside the pathways to Air Force OTA, which is very interesting because
Yeah.
you've got to know that kind of stuff. That takes domain depth. That takes having somebody like Colonel Al Mink that's had 30 something years in cybersecurity for Air Force. He's the only one in the world that may know the answer to that.
Yeah.
So it's all about getting the right one. But Eric, we will definitely track that one down for you and see
Yeah.
what kind of answer we can
I did
get.
a podcast on that, and I think you referred the person to me, Jenny. I did a podcast on it. Doc, go listen to the podcast. It's about 15, 20 minutes. It'll walk you through what an OTA is and how to join. It's usually just a fee that you pay to join, and they have all kind of different fees and stuff like that. But it's a very quick podcast for you to go listen to, and I think you'll learn all about that. So that's a good one.
Yeah, and Chanel just threw something in there. There's a MITRE, MITRE. MITRE is it's a big research organization, large nonprofit, and so that's going to have a good list. And wow, I'm going to grab that, Chanel. That's great information. So, it's like we can all think we know something about government contracting, but we don't know enough, or we don't know who to call
Yeah.
when we need that extra expertise. And that's why, Michael, we came up with this idea of writing a book for this event, and you called it Becoming a GovCon Expert.
Yeah. And it's not going to make you an expert out of the gate because it's a process. That's why it's called becoming a GovCon expert, right? It's a process to do this. And I've been doing it for, like I said, 20 something years, and you just learn a little bit from everybody. And that's why, we put out the book, and I think it gives so many great foundational pieces for folks. And if you just pick up that book, you're going to just move your education light speed forward. So it's so beneficial to have a single resource like that from trusted people, which is another big thing. So I really appreciate that. So
Okay. Well, we'll get started here in just a minute, but yeah, you're right about it. It's like there's so many people that say, well, I understand IT, therefore I understand federal contracting IT. Why is
yeah.
that not a true statement?
Yeah, well, just because you think you understand your industry doesn't mean you understand the government, right? And even with us, there's still stuff that comes up in government we like I said before, we don't know about. So most people are an expert in their craft, but not even an expert in business. And then you layer in the government side of it, And we were just on a call this morning with a client. They've been in business 25 years and they were so clueless about government. They're like, well, we don't know. We've been told we'll break this rule if we do this, and we'll break this rule if we do that. And we're like, that's false. That's false. Yeah, you can call this contracting officers. You can do this. You can do that. You can't call them after it's an active acquisition. But just all these little things. And they're like, we had no idea of all this stuff. And again, they've been in business 25 years. They are leading experts in their industry, and yet clueless on how to do government contracting. So just because you're an expert in business doesn't mean you know how to do government contracting.
Well, you're right. And that's part of the reason why we wanted to bring all of this together and find a way to talk about it, because this is what I call the group brain. I know somebody is going to have part of the answer, and we've got to have enough people to say, well, that would be right, except, oh no, but you could do this. And it's all about collaboration. And so many people, especially in federal contracting, are afraid to have open discussions. And so we're like just being facilitators in this. I learned something today, though.
What's that?
Well, so a guy was posting out on LinkedIn about cybersecurity and talking about FedRAMP and all this other stuff. And I asked him a question that was asked of me last week about, if you've got accounting software like QuickBooks, which a lot of my customers use, how do you make sure that it meets CMMC requirements? And I'm like, well, you can't. And they said, no, there's got to be a way. So there's this thing called FedRAMP that lists all of these approved accounting software. And somebody says, is QuickBooks Intuit on there? Like, no, barbershops use Intuit. I use Intuit. Everybody uses Intuit. Intuit has nothing in their business model that says they're going to be CMMC compliant.
Right.
They also have a hosting platform called Right Networks. Right Networks hosts thousands, millions of companies. They don't care about that little 5%. Right. So we're still looking for solutions. And there's so many of these things that there isn't a solution. You just know you've got a barrier and you really can't get over it. So over, under, around, or through, you got to find another way to get around it. And so that's part of the thing about government contracting, is say, I need to know about these obstacles. I need to figure out what I can get over now, what I could get over in the future, and not let anything stop me. Right.
Yeah. And I like how you mentioned that group brain, or some of us call it the mastermind approach to this, and just being able to share stuff. And I'm the first guy out there to say, I have no idea what that is. I don't understand that. Let's dig in. Because I guarantee you, given the foundation that we have, it just takes a little bit of research to shed some light on a new topic. And you go, now I understand what they're talking about here. Maybe I need to do a little bit more research, but now I know a little bit more and I can move down the track. And so that's one of the things I talk to a lot of my clients about, is one of the first things you got to do is check your ego in this game and just be open to say, I don't understand. I need some help. And it's amazing once you act like that with somebody, how much they want to help you. To just say, Jenny, excuse my ignorance here, but I don't understand this. Could you please help me? And all of a sudden you're like, absolutely, I'd be glad to help you with this. And it just kind of lowers the barrier of everybody, and it just makes it easier to work with you. So people are like, don't play dumb. I'm like, I'm not playing. I don't understand this. Yeah.
Well, exactly. The other side of it is, we've got a lot of publications, we've got podcasts, we've got information, but nobody's reading it because it's all over that. I've written stuff I've forgotten about, 3 days later, and then I don't know what to do with it. So what we're trying to do is take this mountain of knowledge and put it in the middle and just say, let's all be part of a group brain or mastermind. So
absolutely.